morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right, you can have a seat. And so just a reminder that you're still under oath, Mr. Depp, okay? All right,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Good morning, Mr. Depp.
Good morning.
Yesterday, you told us a little bit about the beginning of your relationship with Miss Heard. When did Miss Heard's behavior towards you begin to change?
I believe, as I said yesterday, there was a hint of something with the having to do with the boots coming off and breaking routine. It, her attitude, the way that she would begin to speak to me. Things started coming up, and I was suddenly just wrong about everything. If I made a statement about something that I had been familiar with, for example, in my work that I'd been chopping away at for a good 30-something years, I was suddenly wrong. And then beyond that, if you tried to explain yourself and correct the problem, the misunderstanding, it would then begin to heighten as Ms. Heard was unable to be wrong. It just didn't happen. She couldn't be wrong. So these little digs and it would commence with sort of demeaning, name-calling, berated, sort of to be made a fool of, and those would escalate into a full-scale argument. And in the beginning, as one does, one sticks up for oneself in a debate, as it were, or an argument over something to try to prove the point. But when it escalates, and then it's hard to explain, but the argument would start here, and then it would roll around and become this circular thing of its own. So you get back to the beginning, essentially, of the argument. Now it's heightened even more, but it's still circular, and there's no way in or out. You, if there's a dialogue between two people, both people need to speak, but there was no way to fit a word in. It was a sort of a rapid fire, sort of endless parade of insults and you know, looking at me like I was a fool, and I just couldn't. I was having difficulty in my mind, of course, and in my heart, dealing with that sort of barrage. And part of that is I was confused as to the fact that whatever her age was at the time of these various arguments, she was mid-20s to late 20s and into 30s. I couldn't understand how I had somehow, gotten, arrived at where I'd arrived from where I came from in the beginning of my life and worked for 30 plus years doing these things. It was astounding how wrong I was about everything that I've experienced within the within the film industry, or within, well, in just life itself. No, I was sort of not allowed to be right, not allowed to have a voice. So at a certain point, when that, when what enters your mind is, you start to slowly realize that you are in a relationship with your mother, in a sense. And I know that that sounds perverse and obtuse, but the the fact is that some people search for weaknesses in people. Um, that is to say, sensitivities. And when you've told that person your life, and what you've lived through, and what you've been through, just as happens in relationships, the more that became ammunition for Miss Heard to to either verbally uh, decimate me, or to send me into a kind of tailspin of confusion and depression and um, well, it's not a happy day. It's not a happy week. It's not a happy month when you're constantly being told how wrong you are about this or that, what an idiot you are, um, or anything. It just then it increased, and it became an endless. It became that endless circle. Like, so, as it escalated and continued to escalate, I went straight to what I had learned as a youth, which was to remove myself from the situation so that it couldn't continue, because there's only so much your ears can hear and never forget. So I would remove myself from the situation, as I'd done as a youth, as much as possible. Um, because I, I just I certainly didn't believe that there was any need for these various subjects or arguments to come up and and um, travel the distance that they did so very quickly, to ramp up so fast. Um, it was like you were pinned to a wall and had to just listen to it and take it. So I found the only way to find any sort of peace was to try to walk away. If she didn't allow me to walk away, there were times when I would I would just go and lock myself in, uh, the bathroom or anywhere that she couldn't get into, and that happened uh, constantly over the years.
What would happen when the fights would escalate, other than going and hiding in the bathroom?
I'm sorry, what would happen? Well, if they continue to escalate, um, if I continued to try to um, present my version or my side of the story. When you're approached in a kind of well, when you're approached with such anger and hatred, it seemed like pure hatred for me. Um, if I stayed to argue that, eventually I was sure that it was going to escalate into violence, and oftentimes it did. Many times it did.
And when you say violence, what are you referring to specifically?
Um, Miss Heard, in her frustration and in her rage and her anger, she would strike out. It could begin with a slap. It could begin with a shove. It could begin with, throwing a TV remote at my head. It could be uh, throwing a glass of wine in my face. Um, but all in all, it was just it was a constant. Uh, there was a built-in list of as I said, my personal experiences, which I gave to Miss Heard. Those things were those facts were used against me, um, as weapons, um, especially when it when it came to my kids. Um, so yeah, I did. There was no need for it. It just there was no need for it. Too many lines were crossed. You couldn't see the lines anymore.
You mentioned that Ms. Heard would use information you gave her against you like a weapon. Can you explain that a little bit?
Um, I mean, I've said this before in various interviews, but certainly in life. Um, my, if I have one ambition, and ambition for me, when you equate it with Hollywood, has become a very, has become an ugly word in a sense, because ambition means I want to be famous at any cost. I don't care what for. I just want to be famous. That's one thing. That's one uh, part of it. If you have hunger or a need or a drive to present your work, um, that to me is the way to go about it. Fame has nothing to do with it. So I was more, I mean, basically the only ambition that I've ever had in my life came arrived the second that my first child arrived. In the second, in the instant, which was to be a good parent, to be a great father, to be the best father I could. And there were several occasions where Miss Heard would tell me what a bad father I was, um, and that I had no idea how to parent. Um, and again, it falls into the same category as before. I couldn't understand how in 52 years or however old I was at the time, how I could be so wrong about everything. I mean, one learns along the road. The result is the result of the road is not important. It's the road. that's important because we don't know exactly what's going to happen in 10 years. We don't know. So the road is what I pay attention to, and paying attention to trying to spend as much time with my children as possible. Um, even that, even that would that could send Miss Heard into a monumental tailspin, um, where I could hardly ever go and see my kids and spend time with my kids because she had to have me there at all times for her own needs.
So,
And that was something that once you realize that that's happening, and then there are hassles between the children and her, the situation starts to get a little more grim and a little more dire. And that I was not prepared to take. I would not hear the words, "You're a bad father, you're a terrible father, you're an awful father." So one can only take so much of that before bits of your brain start to just, bits of your brain, bits of your heart begin to, the valve gets shut off because you can't hear it anymore. And you know that it's not true, and you know that it's meant as a web. It's to slice you up, it's to bring you down, it's to demean you, it's to bring you into a place where you start to believe that there's something wrong with you. And there's plenty wrong with me. There's plenty wrong with a lot of people. But in all of these situations, my main goal was to retreat because I think in life, most important is pick your battles. If there's a battle to be fought that is grave and important, then that must be dealt with. But small insults and kind of teenage sort of high school tactics, um, this bullying, if you will, was becoming too much to take.
so why did you stay with Miss Heard given this type of behavior?
That's a very complicated answer. I would, I can only say that I stayed through all that. I'm sure that it's somehow related to my father um, remaining stoic as my mother w- beat to death. Um, I'm sure it had a lot to do with having been in a beautiful, wonderful 14, 15-year relationship with Vanessa, the mother of my children. Raising those kids was, there was, I had no interest in being you know, the words that they use that I dislike very much, a celebrity or an entertainer or fame is a strange word because I could never equate it with myself. I pumped gas, I worked construction, I printed T-shirts, I dug in, you know, I had many, many jobs before any of this happened to me. So I've been able to live both sides of that life, of, of life. I know the very lows and I know the very highs of where my life has gone. And it's not I don't, again, it would be pure idiocy for me to sit up here uh, as as an actor who's been very, very fortunate over the years, and I can only say it's luck in the sense that someone hands you the ball in the beginning, and you run with it, and you run as far as you can before you get tackled. Um, so that's what I've always done. But what happens is when the word celebrity or uh, when you are a, what do they call it, the public public figure, that's what it is, a celebrity or a public figure. Um, Again, not complaining, but there are things that are very uncomfortable, and that is to say that at that point anybody can say anything they want to about you, and that's happened to me over 36 years or more. That things can be printed in the newspaper that are utterly false. And this is even early on. So this is where that that privilege, I suppose, that they call the privilege of celebrity, that's that's where that sticks a knife in you, um, because it's one of those. That's one of those situations where your arms are too short to box with God. There are too many of them coming at you. So yes, uh, I don't know what her motivations were, if there was some species of jealousy, or there was some species of maybe just maybe just hatred. I don't know. Um, but in any case, the elevation and the escalation of these day-to-day arguments were simply unnecessary. It was it was not to relationship, did not help the relationship. It wasn't meant to help the relationship. It was meant to feed her um, need for conflict. She has a need for conflict. She has a need for violence. It erupts out of nowhere, and the only thing I learned to do with it is exactly what I did as a child: retreat, just take a step back. Which I told her, we need to remove ourselves from each other, even for an hour, a day, anything, because this can't go on. No one can live like this. But why did I stay? I stayed, I suppose, because my father stayed. I suppose because I had been in that relationship with Vanessa, and that was lost, and I didn't, I didn't want to, I didn't want to fail. I wanted to try to make it work. I thought maybe I could help her. I thought maybe I could bring her around, because the Amber Heard that I knew for the first year and a half was not this suddenly this um, opponent. It, it it wasn't my girl. It was she had become my opponent, and everything that I did just didn't fit her. Um, it wasn't. She didn't accept it. So I stayed because, of course, I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to. I didn't want to hurt anyone, especially Miss Heard. I didn't want to break her heart. I remember very well that when my father left and my mother, Betty Sue, had that first attempt at suicide that I woke up to, and that visual in my head, and that was a direct result of my father's leaving. Um, Ms. Hurd had spoken of uh, suicide on a couple of occasions, so that also becomes a factor. That's also something that always lives in the back of your brain, and that you fear. Because when I leave, sometimes, I mean, well, times which I leave, she would stop me at the elevator with the security guards crying, screaming, you know, I can't live without you. I'm gonna die. But you had to get out. There were even a couple of times when I did escape. I got to my house, arrived at my house in Sweetser, and then 5 minutes later, she would arrive in in the I don't know what car she was driving at the time, but she would arrive in her nightgown, screaming in the parking lot in front of my house, screaming to high heavens. It'd be 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning. It was ludicrous. It was out of control. It was uncontrollable.
Did there come a time when you and Miss Heard started recording your arguments?
Uh, yes, the in fact, it was I was the first person of the two of us to record conversations, and it was for this reason. She would we would have been talking the night before or arguing the night before, and she would say something. There would be again these demeaning, berating insults. There would be these jabs. There would be anything to make me feel small and like nothing. So what I thought was, I'm going to record the conversation, and I told her this. I'm going to record. I'm going to get the phone out and record a conversation, because I want you to hear what you've said to me tomorrow. Because she would deny having said those things. What are you talking about? It was surreal. She had completely denied things she'd said directly to my face in a heated and volatile way. And she denied it. So I went to her and I said, I'm going to record us. And I did. And we recorded the conversation, which, when she was on tape, it, the first time, it wouldn't, it escalated a bit, but she was, well, it was clear that she was performing for the tape because it was being recorded. So the, that was another clue that something was slightly rotten in the state of Denmark, as it were.
What did Miss Heard say to you about you recording the conversations between you and her?
I mean, initially she said, sure, go ahead.
Did that ever change?
No, she then she started recording, but surreptitious, um, without without telling me that she was recording something, which is fine, but not so fine, if you know what I mean. Um, even in those tapes, it never took me to a place where I would go s- s- switch into some other entity, which is, as she has used the term monster, never switched to violence. Violence was unnecessary. Um, why would you hit someone to make them agree with you? I don't think it works.
Mr. Depp, you mentioned the term monster, and I think we heard about that in the opening statements. What
Yes.
what does the term monster mean to you?
Well, the term monster means to me, in the beginning, she had used a different word to explain the same thing, and she would use the word demons, that my demons were coming out, that she had noticed that there was a great change in my attitude or my um, uh, aggressive nature, or she would say that the demons had come out and they had control of me and that sort of thing. Um, I don't remember exactly how monster came out, but that word stuck and it stayed, well, until this day. Um, what I believe the monster was in Ms. Heard's mind was her intense, im-
Objection, Your Honor.
intense.
His belief about what monster meant in Miss Heard's mind is
All
not
right.
relevant. There's no foundation.
Let me ask a
All right,
different
all right, I'll
question.
sustain the objection. Go ahead.
When you use the term monster, what were you referring to in your conversations with Ms. Heard?
When I used the term monster with Ms. Heard,
Mr. Depp, I'd like to show you a document that's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 146, and I believe this was entered into evidence previously. So if we could publish it to the jury as well, please. Mr. Depp, could you please explain to the jury what's reflected in this photograph?
I believe that's, well, it's definitely me. Um, uh, After receiving kind of a roundhouse punch from Miss Heard. I believe that this is, it's March. I believe that this is from what's been called the staircase incident. Am I correct?
So you said you think this is from March of 2015?
I'm just looking at the top.
Do you remember who took this photograph?
Mr. Bett, Sean Bett.
And relative to when you had injured your finger, when was this photograph taken?
Sorry?
Relative to when you had injured your finger in Australia, when was this photograph taken?
The injury to my finger was sustained, I believe it was a couple of weeks or so before this, because we were back in Los Angeles for the surgery and rehabilitation of the digit.
So I know you can't see your hand in this photograph, but what was What would your hand have been like, given this injury at this date?
Well, it was still a very, it was a very fresh wound. When that amount of, when the tip of your, when your finger is severed, that's not going to heal up for a very long time. And so my finger was still, it was still a very fresh wound. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that this might have been around the time of the pin in the pin that was put into my finger to keep it together, I guess.
And what type of cast would you have had on at this time?
It wasn't a cast per se, as it was bandaging. Uh, when the bandage was out to sort of here, that was extra padding for the tip of the finger protection, and also because of the pin that was in there. So, as I'd said before, there were when Nurse Debbie would ask, give me, on the scale of 1 to 10, your pain. When fingers started to feel differently and hurt a lot more, and it became like 12 out of 10 pain. That was yes, that was right around then, and the reason for that was because of the infection. The MRSA had already been working its way for a number of days.
Mr. Depp, could you please explain to the jury the circumstances that led to you having the bruise that's reflected in this photograph?
There, again, there was another confrontation, another confrontation, another argument about something or other. And we were we were in penthouse 5 area, which was where Ms. Heard had her office at the top of the stairs. And so the stairs came down, and then there was a landing, and then another set of stairs went down the opposite direction. And this took place on the landing, where she was coming out, trying to, trying to get to me, trying to hit me, trying to do anything she could. And then Whitney, her sister, was there, who who stepped in the way. And interesting thing that was that was interesting was now is that Whitney stepped in front of Amber and was facing Amber to stop Amber. And when she was in between us, Amber snuck in she reached, got the roundhouse in, and just nailed me on the cheekbone.
Do you recall what Ms. Heard was upset about at this time?
I do not. I really don't.
And was anyone else in the in penthouse 5 with you and Whitney and Ms. Heard?
By that time, Mr. McGivern had been called. I believe that actually Debbie, as I remember, Debbie Lloyd was at the front door of Penthouse 5, standing by the door. Mr. McGivern was kind of at the bottom of the last group of stairs. And then the thump happened, and I got myself out of there, out of the situation, and I walked down the stairs to Mr. McGivern just to say, let's get out of here, you know. And I remember that something was thrown from up there. I don't recall what it was, but something was thrown at me. It seemed like it was like I don't know if it was a bag of like pens or but it was from her office area.
If we could please pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 343. And for the record, this is an audio recording. It's quite lengthy, so we intend to play certain portions of it.
Okay. Any objection?
No objection, other than just like to know what minute, second portions they're gonna play.
Okay, but the entire audio is in evidence, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And no
Yes.
objection? Okay, all right,
And
343 in evidence.
If you'd like me to read the specific minutes now, or we can provide it to council afterwards.
If you want it now, or as you go, or, okay.
We intend to play minute 25, 37 seconds through 26, 28. 1 hour and 57 minutes, 21 seconds through 1 hour, 58 minutes, 54 seconds. 2 hours, 38 minutes, 52 seconds through, 2 hours, 38, 52 seconds through 2 hours, 39 minutes, 43 seconds. And then 2 hours, 46 minutes, 1 second through 2 hours, 47 minutes, 20 seconds. Those are 4 clips.
Okay.
Thank you.
You want to publish that to the jury? I guess it doesn't matter. It's just audio. Doesn't matter.
Something to you, but it was okay. That's the promise you gave me a little while ago. I'm telling you, if you lost memory last night of kicking me out the door with the fucker hitting me,
Again,
and
sorry.
and your memory is gone from you kicking the bathroom door and hitting me in the skull as I was bent
Again,
down.
I am
Wait,
sorry.
if you have those memory fucking divots.
I was upset. There was a lot going on,
okay,
and I was
but wait.
on an Ambien. Like,
Okay,
why?
but what-
Like, why are you obsessing over the fact that I can't remember it the way you remembered it? I said I was sorry. I didn't deny
know
it.
that. I'm not talking about that. What I want. No, it's not to get you mad. It's not to get. It's just to get out of a bad situation while it's happening before it gets worse. In Australia, when we had the big fight where I lost the tip of my finger, at least 5 bathrooms and 2 bedrooms I went to. To
To avoid talking to me, to
To
avoid
escape
working it
the-
out. That's
to
the
escape
problem.
the fight.
You don't escape the fight. You escape the solution. You
No.
escape the solution.
No.
You escape figuring it out. We cannot work it out if you run away to the bathroom every time.
Listen to me. Listen to me. A boxer can't go 12 rounds without a fucking minute break.
I'm not giving you a minute break. You do it at minute 3 at the beginning of an argument.
No. There are rounds, man. And when it gets too fucking hairy, the ref splits them apart or whatever. But all I'm saying is, you can't have a solution if the argument just keeps mounting and mounting and mounting and mounting. I fucking go into the bathroom and sit on the floor. Bam, bam, bam. Here you come. I come out. Fight. Crazy. Escalated. I split again. I go to another fucking bathroom or a bedroom or something. Knock. Bang, bang, bang. You kept coming to get me. I'm not the one who fucking throws fucking pots and
Those are different. That's different.
fucking else at me.
That's different. That's one does not negate the other. That's irrelevant. It's a complete non sequitur. Just because I've thrown pots and pans does not mean that you come and knock on the door. Just because there are vases does not mean that you come and knock on the door.
Really, I should just let you throw.
I'm not saying that. You're saying that. You're putting words in my mouth and then making non sequiturs.
I'm giving you a situation.
No, you're trying to justify how you don't or do come to the door
No,
based on whether I throw pots and pans. It's irrelevant.
No, I'm justifying how you seem to think that there's this cowardice in me that runs away and I don't fight for you.
And you're justifying that by saying I throw pots and pans? Okay, cool. Let's
No,
talk about everything you do wrong.
I'm not the one who. I said to Travis, I said to you, hey, tell Travis what just happened.
You told me to do it. You told me to. You said, don't do that.
I said, no, tell him what just happened.
And I lied.
And that you punched me in the
You're right.
fucking thing. And
You figured it out.
And you said, no, fuck it. I didn't. What the fuck are you talking about? And I
didn't
watched
punch
you
you.
lie. And then
I didn't punch you,
and
by
then
the
I-
way. I'm sorry that I didn't hit you across the face in a proper slap, but I was hitting you. It was not punching you. Babe, you're not punched.
Don't tell me what it feels like to be punched.
You know, even a lot of fights been around a long time. I know. Yeah.
No, when you fucking have a close.
You didn't get punched. You got hit. I'm sorry I hit you like this, but I did not punch you. I did not fucking deck you. I fucking was hitting you. I don't know what the motion of my actual hand was, but you're fine. I did not hurt you. I did not punch you. I was hitting you.
How are your toes?
What am I supposed to do? Do this?
How are your
I'm
toes?
not sitting here bitching about it, am I? You are. That's the difference between me and you. You're a fucking baby.
Because you start.
You are such a baby. Grow the fuck up,
Because you start
Jhonny.
physical fights.
I did start a physical
Yeah,
fight.
you did. So I had
Because-
to get the fuck out of there.
Yes, you did. So you did the right thing, the big thing. You know what? You are admirable.
Mr. Depp, could you please explain to the jury what they just heard on those audio recordings?
What was just played on the audio recordings was very much the tone and the aggression and the attitude and the need for a fight from Ms. Heard. That was, I don't know if that was some need for attention, but I don't, it, that was a sound that I had gotten very used to. The squabbling, the the raising of the voice to essentially excommunicate anything that I had to say about the situation. But then, and I do remember the that incident. I believe that's from the when I was in the bathroom. I was in fact taking a shower, and this was in penthouse 3, and she came banging on the door, banging on the door, banging on the door. I didn't answer. I was in the shower. I couldn't deal with it. I didn't want to deal with any more of that uh, sarcastic, demeaning, um, aggressive, violent, toxic spew. Um, and so I was taking a shower and I didn't want to answer the door. She kept banging. And then I finally got out of the shower and I opened the bathroom door about just that much, just so I could have a good hold on the door in case she tried to burst in. And I was right, she did. She was, bathroom doors go in. She was pushing all her weight on the door, trying to get in. And I was pushing back because I didn't want to let her in because I obviously didn't want the confrontation. She was not in best of moods. You can hear. Uh, so when I was pushing the bathroom door, trying to close it, and was almost closed, she suddenly kind of yelped in pain. And she screamed out, "Ow, my toes or my foot or something." And so in that second, I thought possibly her foot had gotten caught under the door, which would, of course, not feel great on the foot or the toes. So I thought she was maybe injured. So I knelt down to have a look. The door was still, was it was still pretty well about that much open. And when I knelt down uh, on my hands and knees to look at her foot to see the injury, um, she kicked the bathroom door uh, into my head. So yeah, she kicked the bathroom door into my head, and I was completely taken aback by such a corrosive, horrific move. So I stood up, and I believe I stood up, and but at this point the door was open. I stood up and I think I said, "What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that?" And the next move was just a bang. She clocked me in the jaw. And That was another shocker.
How
So
long
she-
after that did you start recording?
Sorry,
How long after that did you start recording that audio recording that we just heard?
that audio recording was about her trying to make less of what had happened. In fact, trying to make less of what had happened by repeating some story to me that didn't make any sense. And it certainly didn't make any sense since I was there and I was the target. So I wanted some confirmation from someone with some semblance of a mind that could understand what was happening. I wanted Mr. McGiver to come up, and I asked her to tell him what had just happened. And her answer was essentially, I don't know what he's talking about. Nothing happened. He's fine. And once again, I told Mr. McGivern, time to leave the premises.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to show you now what's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 162.
Okay.
You can take this down. Thank you. Could you pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 92, please? Mr. Depp, what is this a picture of?
That is a that's a photograph of the blade of an old like a Bowie knife. That's the photograph of the blade with an inscription on it to me from Ms. Hurd, who at the time I referred to as Slim.
Your
And
Honor, we'd
it's-
like to move Exhibit 90, Plaintiff's Exhibit 92 into evidence.
No objection.
Mr. Depp, what does it say on this knife?
Hasta la muerte,
And what does that mean?
until death,
And then what does it say after that?
XX Slim,
And who is Slim?
Ms. Hurd.
When did Ms. Hurd give you this knife?
Well, it was a present from Ms. Hurd. I believe it was around 2015.
Could we please take this down and pull up Plaintiff's Exhibit 93?
93?
93, yes. Mr. Depp, what is this a photograph of?
That's the knife in full view. That's the full side of that knife.
We plaintiffs would move Plaintiff's Exhibit 93 into evidence as well.
All right, 93 in evidence, you can publish to the jury.
Mr. Depp, do you recall the occasion on which Ms. Hurd gave you this knife?
I don't recall exactly the occasion, whether it was my birthday of 2015 or if it was a Christmas gift.
We can take this down, please. Thank you. Mr. Depp, I'd now like to show you what's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 65. And I believe this has already been offered into evidence. If
Yes.
so, if we could please publish to the jury, thank you. Mr. Depp, what's reflected in these photographs?
Um, there were some scratches. Another altercation, and there were some mishearded come at me with her nails or hand scratching at me.
And who took these photographs of you?
Once again, I believe this was Mr. Pett, Sean Pett.
And when were these photographs taken?
Seems to be Christmas, or 10 days before Christmas, the 15th of December 2015.
Mr. Depp, do you remember what led to you having these scratches on your face?
This was yet again another confrontation where as was my regular practice, there had been an altercation. She was she had some rage issue with me, and I remember that I was trying to go to my corner, as it were, which is I was going into my office in penthouse 3, which is upstairs. And as I was approaching the door to my office, Miss Heard ran out of the master bedroom, our bedroom, and started just throwing wild punches at me, at the back of my head, at the side of my head, at anything that she could connect with. And I had to, I would have to show you sort of how I tried to avoid the attack.
Please do.
If it's all right, John.
Yes, yes, sir.
If I'm walking this way to the door of my office, the bedroom door is where you are. I'd walked across the mezzanine there, and as I'm approaching the door, suddenly I'm just getting clobbered from behind, and one's natural primal instinct is to kind of duck and cover. So I ducked and covered, but they didn't stop. So I came up this like this, sort of protecting my face, but at the same time, with her arms swinging wildly, I put my arms out, and I was able to get her into a bear hug or something, just to stop her from hitting me anymore. And while holding her in that position, she was still trying to, she had her legs, she could kick, she could knee me. So she was still jumping, kind of very angry, very animated. And yeah, it was unpleasant.
What happened at the end of that situation?
Because of the grabbing of the arms and holding them to her side so that I didn't receive any more blows. And she was still fighting. I believe there was some kind of contact with our heads, our foreheads, as would happen if you're trying to calm someone like that. And then that was when she accused me of headbutting her, of giving her a headbutt and breaking her nose. But there was no blood. There was no. I didn't hit her nose. If there was anything at all, it was a bump of. Well, I'm trying to restrain her. She's trying to get out of it. There's going to be some contact here and there, accidental contact, but not a headbutt.
How did you escape this altercation?
After she'd made the remark about the fact that I headbutted her, which was just impossible, she split. She huffed off. I let her go. She huffed away, and she was gone for about 7 or 8 minutes. And then when she came back, I was in the bedroom of penthouse 3, our bedroom. And she came back about 7 or 8 minutes later. She had a Kleenex or a tissue to her nose. And she pulled it away from her nose and she showed it to me. And there was red. There was indeed like red color on the tissue. But me, I know that there was no connection to her nose. No part of my body made connection to her nose or eyes or anything like. So she said, she took it away and she showed it to me. She said, "Way to go, Jhonny, you broke my nose. You broke my nose." And I knew I hadn't. So I said, you go into sort of placation mode, which is, "Oh my God, let me see. Are you okay? What happened? Let me see." And she wouldn't let me see anything. And so I just tried to calm the situation as best I could. All the while, I was waiting for her to dispense with that Kleenex because I didn't trust it. And so I waited, and when she dropped it into the wastebasket in her bathroom, or in our bathroom, and left the room, went somewhere downstairs, I think, I don't know. And then I pulled the Kleenex out of the trash bin, and I inspected it pretty closely and realized it was nail polish. It was nail varnish or polish.
Mr. Depp, shortly after December 15th, 2015, where did you and Miss Heard go for the holidays?
It was had been planned for a while that we would be going to the island, and we would be going to the island with um, my kids, Lily Rose and Jack, and Lily Rose's boyfriend at the time. There's a friend of Amber's called Alice Temperley, I believe her name was. and her friend Greg Williams, who's a very well-known photographer, and both very nice people, and their kids were going to, she told me they were going to come to the island, and I thought, okay, great. And so, yeah, so that's where we went for the holidays.
And what happened on the island in December 2015?
Many things, but um,
Was there any violence by Ms. Heard against you?
oh, yes, there were a couple of incidents that were, again, just each time one of these incidents would occur, it seemed to get worse and worse. Is to say, as opposed to fists or anything like that. I'd set up on the back porch of the house. I'd set up an area with an easel and oil paints and a can of mineral spirits, linseed oil, brushes, everything. So she wanted to paint. So I had set it up for, and for some, and again, I remember I was sitting at the table where most of the paintbrush and the pan and all that stuff was. And the argument, again, escalated, and she just simply reached down and grabbed the can of mineral spirits and chucked it at my face. She threw it at my face, and it struck me right at the bridge of the nose, sort of the forehead, bridge of the nose area. And it hurt.
Who else was around when this happened?
Well, thankfully, my children and Lily Rose's boyfriend were over towards the cafe. At that point, I didn't know that anyone else was around or had witnessed anything. I thought it was just Amber and I, but apparently there are 4 staff who work on the island.
I don't think it's hearsay. I don't think any statements yet. You can go ahead and continue your answer, sir.
Okay.
Sorry, the staff that work on your island, Mr. Depp?
Yeah. So there are indeed 4 staff who work on the island and live there all year round, who take care of everything, and 2 of them happen to be in that area and witnessed the violence.
I'll sustain as to, unless you can lay a foundation, how he would know that
Certainly.
if it was not hearsay.
Mr. Depp, how do you know that these staff members witnessed part of this altercation?
These people, as I said, they're staff on the island, though I consider them family and very dear to me. And I believe it is mutual. I've known them a very long time. They were visibly shaken by what they'd witnessed.
Objection.
Again, if you can lay a foundation, if he saw them there, or if this is something they
Mr.
told
Depp,
them.
did you see any of these individuals shortly after you had this altercation with Ms. Heard?
No, that's not the proper. Did he see them as actually there? If he didn't, if it was something they told him, then it's hearsay.
Mr. Depp, did you see any of your staff members at the house when you and Ms. Heard had that altercation?
Once Miss Heard had stormed off, I sort of sat there dazed and confused for a few minutes, and then I walked around the house, and I saw Tara and
That's fine. Okay, I'll sustain the objection. We'll move on.
You mentioned Tara. Who's Tara?
Tara's the manager of the island.
Mr. Depp, I'd like to discuss April 2016 now. When is Miss Heard's birthday?
22nd of April.
And in 2016, how was Miss Heard celebrating her birthday?
We'd set up a dinner for her, which was, she wanted to have a dinner with her, with all her friends, and Josh, Drew, Rob's boyfriend, who was some sort of chef, told, he asked her what she would like for him to cook. That's hearsay, I guess.
Go ahead. I'm not just sure if it's offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
He got it. That was good.
Okay, all right, well then.
I'm learning.
Yeah.
Let me put it a different way. Mr. Drew, who was a chef, which I don't believe is hearsay, Mr. Drew had made Mexican food Ms. Heard's favorite. Is that better?
And what were you doing that day before Miss Heard's birthday celebration?
I had been in a room for many, many hours with a group of accountants, new accountants, and they were going through essentially the situation that I was in financially, which was a real shock to me. I had no idea, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but I prefer to think of the work as opposed to how much I'm getting paid. So I had no idea how much money I'd made. I just didn't. I just figured if I was working, there was money, so everything would be all right. They informed me that I had been, well, that quite an inordinate amount of sum of money had been was gone. It had disappeared, and after having worked 30-something years in the industry, I'm sorry, I could hear Ms. Brett.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was pretty shocked at where I was to learn I was exactly financially. And it was a very long meeting. And I knew, of course, that Ms. Heard's birthday dinner was to start at, I believe, 8:30. And I texted her a number of times from the meeting saying, this is probably going to go long, and I think I might be a little late. I'm sorry, but it's, you know, important, and I'm going to be a bit late for the dinner, and I apologize. It's all over the place, and so when I left and picked up something at the house, which I believe was her gift, on the way downtown, I received a text from Miss Hurd asking me to bring, asked if I could bring some wine and some weed. And I texted back, sure. And then by the time I got to, arrived at Penthouse 5 for the party, I was about an hour and 40 minutes late, maybe, something like that.
Before you arrived, how many drinks had you had?
Oh, I think I'd had a glass of wine with, there was one bottle of wine that Ed White had brought to the meeting that we, between, I don't know how many, 5 or 6 of us, we had a glass of wine.
Could you tell the jury who Ed White is?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Ed White was at the time, he was my new business manager. And he was quite a, he was quite a professional, nearly forensic business manager. And he had shown me things that from my former business managers that were quite
Objection,
disturbing.
Hearsay.
I believe he said he showed him.
Yes, yes, I looked at papers. Maybe they're hearsay papers, I don't know.
Yeah,
I believe he was being shown financial documents.
all right, so, well, I'll sustain this, any hearsay that might be.
Understood.
Okay, next question.
Mr. Depp, when you arrived at the party, how did Ms. Hurd greet you, if at all?
Very cold.
What did she say to you?
Not much. Not much, except occasionally she would tear herself from the conversation that she was in just to lean towards me. I was sitting to to her right, and I would get a quick earful of, I can't believe you've done this to me on my birthday. I can't believe, I'm so embarrassed. You know, which I found odd because I'd kept her informed all day. And the last text that I'd received was a request for wine and marijuana. So when I got there and received that attitude, what could I do? So I just made the best of it and talked to her friends, and because they were all her friends except for, I believe, Nurse Erin. Erin was there, I believe.
What's Aaron's last name?
But Erin Borum, Nurse Erin, who had been the nurse assigned to Ms. Hurd. So I just had conversations with the various people there. Her makeup artist, Melanie Iglesias, was there with her fella, and I remember speaking French with them. And I didn't really eat, wasn't feeling it.
Did you have any drinks once you arrived at the birthday party?
Wine.
How many glasses?
I don't, maybe two, because they were like large, the large sort of Bordeaux glasses. So yeah, maybe two glasses of wine by the time it started to wind down.
How many drinks did you observe Ms. Hurd consume after you arrived at the party?
I really couldn't say because all I saw was just she was drinking wine.
And did it seem to you that she had been drinking wine prior to your arrival?
I was sure, since I was an hour and 40 minutes late, that Ms. Heard was well into the wine before I got there, yes, certainly.
How did the party come to an end?
Uh, um, it was kind of, one person would say, well, I better get out of here, and then two more couples or two more people would say, yeah, time to go. And then it just wound down. There was uh, Mr. Drew, Miss Pennington, um, Whitney, possibly Whitney. And about it sort of left there.
And what happened after the guests left the party?
She was free to commence with the usual verbal barrage, and at that point, there was so much in my head from the meeting. I thought it was a bit much that Miss Heard had. I'm sorry, it seemed quite bratish. It seemed quite childish that Miss Heard was holding such a grudge against me for having been late to her 30th birthday party when she knew very well, she was well informed that I was in an intense meeting that had a lot to do with not just my life and my future, but my children's. And I didn't know what was going to happen to, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if houses were going to start going away. I didn't. So it felt, it, 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 I'm sure she felt something, but it felt unfair. It felt small comparatively. If your loved one or your husband has had some very serious issues brought before him. So when she engaged in her normal kind of banter of trying to poke at me and get me to react, I literally just got into bed. I remember the television was on, and I was reading, and I suppose Miss Heard was down in her area taking off her makeup and changing into sleep clothes, whatever, and she entered the bedroom while I was laying on my side of the bed reading, and she was still rattling off all the wrongs I'd done to her in that particular day, and how unreliable I am, and what a horrible person I was. And I did not engage verbally, nothing. I sat there or laid there reading my book, and when she didn't get a jump out of me or a jolt out of me, she got out of bed. She walked around the bed. She came to my side, and again, you've got a person who is throwing multiple shots at your face, at your head, at your neck, at anything she could hit. So I got up out of bed and I grabbed her by the shoulders and I sat her down on the bed. And I said, I'm leaving. Please don't get off the bed. Please don't follow me. Please don't try and stop me. I'm leaving. And she got up off the bed and she squared off at me in the doorway of our bedroom. And I said, what do you want to do? Hit me again? Would you like to hit me again? And I said, go ahead, hit me. Bam. And then I just said, is that what you wanted? Would you like another? Bam. There's the second one. And I said, good, now you're done. Grabbed her by the shoulders, walked her to the bed, sat her down and said, don't follow me. Leave me alone. I'm out. I'm gone. I went, I grabbed a few things, and I got out immediately, and I went to my other house on Sweetser. As Ms. Heard was, she was leaving the following day for Coachella, which is Coachella is like it's a big event, a concert, you know, many bands, and yeah, out in the desert. She and her friends were going to Coachella for the weekend, and that was it. That was it.
Mr. Depp, after April 21st, 2016, when was the next time that you actually saw Ms. Heard in person?
I left Miss Heard, well, I left Penthouse 3. I left at 4:30 in the morning. It was actually her birthday. It was about 4:30 in the morning, April 22nd. And that's when I left. And from that moment on, I did not see Ms. Heard until May 21st.
And why was that?
I had received some news that was as absurd and grotesque and cruel. And then I was shown a picture of what the problem was. I had gone to Mr. Bett and said, she's at Coachella. I think it's a good time to go downtown so that I can get some of my things, you know, and get them out of there, especially the things that were precious to me, you know, children things from friends, Brando, Hunter, Thompson, whatever, things that were important to me. And he said, I don't think now's a good time to go. And I thought, it's the perfect time. She's not going to be home for 2 days. And then he showed me a photograph on his telephone of
Objection, Your Honor. Also hearsay.
It's a photograph, Your Honor.
As being relayed to him by Mr. Bett.
He says he looked at it on his phone.
I'll overrule the objection as the photograph.
What was the photograph of, Mr. Depp?
it was a photograph of the bed, our bed, and on my side of the bed was human fecal matter. So I understood why it wasn't a good time to go down there. My initial response to that was, I mean, I laughed. There, it was so outside. It was so bizarre and so grotesque that I could only laugh. So I did not go down there that day.
Mr. Depp, how was your mother's health during this time?
Not good, not good at all. My mom was in Cedars-Sinai Hospital, and she was on her way out. She was dying.
How
She-
often were you going to see her during this time?
Excuse me?
How often were you going to see her during this time?
As much as I could under the circumstances. But when I did go and get to see my mom, she was pretty much incapable of speech. Her speech had left her. At that time, she seemed to, her eyes were still open, and she could kind of react with her eyes, but she couldn't speak. And then not long after that, once her eyes closed, she lay there for the duration of her life, which ended on the 20th of May, the night before I saw Miss Heard for the last time. Well, essentially.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Depp, but how did your mother's death affect you?
As it would anyone, I suppose. There was one thing that I couldn't fathom was, I mean, I brought my kids to see Betty Sue in the hospital, and at that time she was not functioning. She was not responsive. I mean, she was alive still. She was fighting still inside, but she was lying in the bed, and what, excuse this analogy, but all I could think of was how if she's conscious of if she's conscious of everything that's going on around her, but has no ability to speak, has no ability to move. I knew that the one thing, as far as Betty Sue was concerned, the last thing that she would have wanted was to have ended up lying there on a, what it was like